Let's take a look at some charts, figures, and graphs on Polkadot for Brave New Coin. Now, I don't even know where to begin with Polkadot. It's been out for a few months as far as the mainnet. The road to mainnet token release has been winding, more twists and turns than an M. Night Shyamalan movie. Where do I begin? Do I talk about Gavin Wood? Do I talk about his involvement with ETH? Do I talk about how all these founders tend to leave and create their own thing that's bigger, better, faster, stronger, and we're supposed to believe that they're going to stick around? He created Solidity, Gavin Wood. Just comparing him. Do you compare him to Charles Hoskinson and Larimer and all these other yahoos who just go from project to project? I don't know. That's for you to decide. I'm not putting that idea in your head at all. Here's the Polkadot website, and it's a bit of a word salad. Slices, dices, does everything better than everybody else, that sort of thing. The usual stuff. It's got to say that. Marketing says so. It is a chain of chains, as far as I understand. Early days for this. KSM is related to Polkadot, as well as a few other things. I highly encourage you to look into talks or discussions by Gavin, using his own words as far as describing what this network could be or what he wants it to be. Is it an ETH killer? Is it more of an interoperability play? Is it sitting on top of everything? That's for you to decide. That's for the market to decide. It's super early. We'll see what happens. The chips will fall as they may. Back to the Parity wallet hack in 2017. Man, it feels like yesterday. Essentially, all these companies are kind of related. All these ideas in crypto are kind of related. So we have Parity, Tech, Web 3.0, Polkadot, Gavin Wood, ETH, Vitalik. All this stuff is kind of related. Although love or hate Vitalik, he's kind of focused on ETH sort of since the beginning and hasn't really moved on to other things. So good for him for sticking through it. But essentially, some of their ICO funds, if memory serves right, were frozen and remain frozen, like a mosquito and amber, here on the multi-sig wallet hack. And unfortunately for Polkadot, they are the largest of all of the multi-sig funds that were frozen here. And if you look at it today, it's still there and isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Now, they tried some backdoor scheming to vote for a rollback of this, and the ETH community was up in arms, and rightfully so. You can't just bail out your friends because they want to stick in some EIP that says this is okay to do. This sets a gross precedent if the blockchain isn't immutable. I mean, that's the argument, right? If we can just roll back any of the mistakes, why have a ledger at all? Some would say it's justified to do so. Some would say it isn't, whatever. But ultimately, it was not done and has not been done yet. So that's kind of the before times for Polkadot. They had a redenomination or renumeration of their tokens before launch. That's part of the conversation as well. And probably part of the reason why they've done so well on the trading aspect of things, just because they had a strong integer bias going into the beginning of it all. I was looking into Polkadot consensus, something I've never heard anybody talk about, probably because I'm not intimately involved with this sort of thing normally. And I had to pull this up because if I would have said it and you never heard of it, you might think I'm crazy. But they have this acronym, Grandpa and Babe. Again, you can read about it. But it's all part of the proof of stake stuff, involvement with a bunch of other stuff that I can't explain easily or readily. So I highly recommend reading through this, validators, non-staking. It's all the same flavor of stuff we've seen elsewhere, just slightly different a variety. From what I can gather, inflation on Polkadot is 10% and staking rewards are 5%. So even if you're staking, you're losing money. You're getting diluted in that regard. And that's worth knowing and paying attention to with any proof of stake project. Just the tokenomics, who gets what and when, how much vested token is being unlocked, how much VC token is being unlocked. I don't have any high regard for any VC that's involved in the token side of things because they're going to get in at a 0% valuation and sell to the public at a 10x or higher. And it's a feels bad man sort of moment for the general public when you're buying someone else's bags that have 10x or 100x. This is the, not the block explorer, but the validators. If you want to look more into that, we can look at the geographic distribution of the validators. Europe, France, Germany, Portugal, I think this one, Lisbon, one in Australia, bunch in the United States, Japan, South Korea, China. So a decent swath of geographic distribution so far. Again, early days in Polkadot, so any concerns I have about centralization are kind of silly. It hasn't really been fully fleshed out just yet in my mind. If we look at the transaction count and average transaction values being sent on the network, this is for the DOT token specifically. Transactions per day spiked in late December, kind of preceding some of the price action. Average transaction values are elevated and remain elevated since January. So far, this suggests price at this level is warranted based on this small swath of on-chain activity. If we look at NVT, inverse metric of economic utility, in the line here and active addresses in the fill, once again, we have a pretty decent case for bullish on-chain stuff. As with any proof of stake network, active addresses are kind of less meaningful because a certain percentage of the network is just sitting collecting interest on their holdings, basically. So is that a true like economic active address? That's for you to decide, but that's baked into this equation here. So this could just be more people staking is what I'm trying to say versus, actually people sending stuff to and from on the network. NVT is historically low, and that doesn't really mean much considering there's not much history here, but overall it's low and rising slightly, which is semi-bearish overall, but again, it's super early to really tell what's going on here. You want NVT falling. NVT falling says price has not adequately kept up with the on-chain activity. And you can see how this NVT drop, regardless of what's going on chain, this drop preceded everything in January. NVT basically bottomed out January 3rd. So if you're looking for signals, this is what you're looking for, right? If you're trying to catch a move using fundamentals and ignoring the technicals. I'll get to the technicals at the end, but this highlighted the network not pricing in on-chain activity for whatever reason. It could be Gavin moving tokens around, right? Like whatever. It is what it is. If we look at the GitHub, which I don't normally do for the videos, but I wanted to for this because it's early days for Polkadot, they have 320-ish repos, a few of which are active, but they're still being coded, and there's people doing stuff. What you hate to see is for an ICO to happen, and then the dev work drops off to zero, and they say, "Oh, we're just doing this somewhere else." It is what it is. But seeing something is better than seeing nothing, regardless of the quality of the commit, or if the commit is deleting a space and adding a space. I don't care. People are doing something here. I'll leave it for the GitHub junkies to decide how valuable that stuff is. Looking at Google Trends for Polkadot worldwide past 12 months, I'm fairly confident this is specifically the token and not like, Polkadot's like the real world thing. We saw basically a double top in the Google Trends here, pulled back slightly. So again, this to me says price is okay where it's sitting. It's not like Google Trends went back to zero. There's still some maintained interest in price even at this level. You can see how Google Trends sort of exploded Jan to Feb and then trailed off late February to present. So this will be something to watch for if you're bullish on DOT and this goes south. Definitely a divergence on interest versus price there. If we zoom way out to the beginning of time for DOT, all the way back in August last year when it got listed, it kind of did a bunch of nothing on Kraken for a little while. It had this convex concave, it had this curvature to it that you see in bullish charts versus bearish charts. If you want to see a bearish curve, look at something like Zcash where it has the opposite curve. That usually has a bearish bias. This had a bullish bias to begin with. Then it had an inverted head and shoulders that broke up, and then all this volume comes in. So for whatever reason, it appears as though it joined the DeFi conversation in January. Since January, volume certainly trailed off on Kraken, specifically on the USD pair. Nevertheless, it is consolidating at mid 30s. It's holding above 50 on RSI. If RSI flips below 50, I'd get more bearish. But as long as it's consolidating, holding this triangle, sitting above 50, it probably suggests bullish continuation. You know, I'm not bullish on the project, but the chart is the chart. If this does not reach for 50, reach for 100, it's going to retrace. You know, if DeFi as a collective decides to pull back, I've no doubt in my mind that 1750 is where DOT's going to want to live on any pullback based on VPVR. It's a 50% drawdown from where it sits now. Plenty of reasons it finds this as support. Of all the moves that have happened with DOT, the most perplexing was this one in early January. It did pull back with the market entirely, but then it kicked on the afterburners and something else took over. So my own personal sentiment with this is, yeah, it looks bullish till it isn't still. I mean, it looks really good. This is a 4-hour. You can see this mini inverted head and shoulders that didn't actually go anywhere. And it's sort of back into consolidation within itself here. And I'd be watching anything above 36, 38. You know, if it gets above that zone, basically if it makes a higher high, when people draw triangles like this, that's really what they're looking at. Doesn't make a higher high, doesn't make a lower low. That's really what we care about, because thus far it has been unable to do either. And that's why it's drawing this consolidation like this. There's also a 5200 EMA support basically at the current price. Should this flip bearish, that's another early sign, along with daily RSI going below 50. If you see daily RSI below 50 and a bearish 4-hour 5200 cross, odds are pretty good this is going to fall out the bottom and head towards the support around 1750 based on VPVR. Then lastly, the .BTC chart. Again, it's early, so who knows what this is going to do in the long term. If you're bullish on DOT flipping ETH and ETH flipping BTC, I mean, you're going to be bullish on this chart regardless of what I'm about to say, but this looks like it's headed back to the S1 monthly pivot, the 200-day moving average, or the 200 period moving average, and this VPVR level. You can see it broke the 50 for the first time since breaking above it in January. Volumes really cooled off here on Binance. RSI is below 50. No bull divs just yet on any lower lows. So I'm not too bullish on the BTC chart, although the USD chart looks okay. I mean, fundamentals are, for me personally, a complete toss-up. I have no idea what to think about this project, honestly. I just think it's way too early. You know, if ETH can fix itself fee-wise within the next 6 to 12 months, it's going to be hard-pressed for any of these ETH-adjacent projects to outcompete, outperform. The moat on ETH is just so big at this point in the DeFi space. Unless these DeFi players want to go multi-chain themselves, I don't see a single other chain outcompeting ETH. You know, if the party's happening on ETH, everybody else is going to play second fiddle to whatever's going on there. So let me know what you guys think about DOT in the comments below, and happy trading.